Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Juanita Mercer, and thank you for joining me for powerful 31 Days to Self-Accountability, where we ask ourselves 31 tough questions in 31 days to make sure that we are using our power for good, and that with every decision we make, we are demonstrating our love for God and others. Today is day 10, and today's tough question is there a better way to do this? Gosh, sometimes we make things harder on ourselves than they have to be, right? But sometimes we need to just stop and assess, is there a better way to do this? Especially when the way that we're working with right now might be utilizing too many resources, might be causing more harm than good. And so we have to stop and say, God, is there a better way to do this? So let's consider David. Oh gosh, David had made the decision that it was time for the Ark of God to return to Israel because it had been too long neglected by King Saul during his reign. And so he goes to the Israelite leaders and he says, if it's the will of God, right, that we should do this, do you agree that the Ark of God should return? And they say, yes, let's do it. And so he rallies everyone together and they bring the Ark of God back to Israel. Well, on the way, two men, Uzzah and Ahio, are on the sides and in front of the ark. And as they get to the threshing floor of Nacon, they stumble, right? And Uzzah touches the side of the ark and he dies immediately in the presence of the Lord. And David is devastated. He's just like, how could this happen? If God is going to be this angry and this sensitive about, moving the ark, I'm not doing it. So he leaves it in the care of a Levite and he just abandons the whole thing. Well, time goes by and we see that in chapter 15, David is saying, okay, you know what? I know now that I didn't do it the right way. I know it was the will of God for the ark to return, but what I didn't ask was if it was his way. And God had told the Levites in the book of Leviticus that they were the only ones who could carry the ark. And David says very clearly, I know it was the will of God, but it wasn't his way. And so he says, we must do it God's way this time. The Levites must carry the ark. And when he did it God's way, they had no problem. And they praised God and they danced and they sung songs the whole way there and even offered sacrifices unto the Lord. And it truly, truly glorified God. And God was pleased. And he blessed them because the Levites carried it. Gosh, if we would just do things God's way, and sometimes God's way doesn't necessarily make all the sense in the world. Sometimes it's difficult to understand. Sometimes you're like, God, isn't this a harder way? Oh, but when it's God's way, he blesses it. So let that be a lesson to us to seek God's will and his way in everything that we do. It doesn't matter if it's related to your finances, your relationships, something at work. God is here for us to do everything, and he wants to lead us and guide us in all that we do. So let's avoid the hard stuff, right? Let's try to get it right the first time. And if you notice that this way just isn't working, that is causing more harm than good, is utilizing too many resources, it probably isn't the way you need to do it. So stop and ask God for direction. Well, that's it for today. Join me tomorrow for day 11. And remember, in everything you do and with everything you have, love God and love people. Goodbye.